Going to call to order the Kerrville City Council regular meeting for November 12th, 2024. Please rise for the invocation and pledge led by Councilmember Kent McKinney.
Please pray with me. Heavenly Father, thank you for the many blessings that we enjoy here in the Hill Country. We live in a great city, state, and country. Please help us keep in mind the preciousness of the freedom that we have. Many people can tend to take that for granted when it shouldn't be. This was a high price paid to purchase that freedom by those who were brave enough to fight for us. Please bless all those around the world that protect and defend us, and also those here at home. Please guide us this evening in our work so that we may do your will. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Kent. Announcements of community interest. Mr. Kunis.
Thank you, Mayor. We have a big activity this weekend and next weekend. This weekend, the Cruise In Car Show. That's going to be at the Kerrville Sports Complex. This year it's on the baseball side. Last year it was on the soccer side. So switch over. We're looking forward to that. A lot of entries in that. And come out. I think it's a come and go as you wish. So we encourage everybody to come out and enjoy some great car show. All right, next Saturday, the 23rd, is our big holiday lighted parade. I know that I think we filled up the number of floats 2-3 weeks ago. So that means we've got I think we've hit 100 in the past. We're probably close to that this year. So that will go a while. There's some street blockings that will be going on. We've got those posted on our website and on our Facebook pages. So make sure you note that. But come down. That's a lot of fun. That's next Saturday starting at 6 p.m. And then before we meet again, we'll have the Running Home for the Holidays, another Parks and Rec event. That's December 7th. It starts at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's a great time to come and look at how these people dress up and run a 5K. And makes for some great photos every year. If you want to try it, come on out. We look forward to it. And finally, today, in case you missed it, we had the groundbreaking for the beginning of the renovations on the A.C. Shriner House, which will be hopefully in 2006, the Heart of the Hills Heritage Center. Mayor, I know you might want to say something about that. It was a fun time out there today. And that's
Looks
it
like
for me.
I don't know how to use a shovel for one thing.
I can't wear a hat, but that's okay.
It was a great event, and I want to thank everybody on the city staff that's been involved. It's been many years in the making, and I'm pleased that we're getting started, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who are pleased when it's finished. So thank you for everyone that was there today. I appreciate it. All right. Go ahead, please.
Okay, so I'm trying to encourage people to park on the 3rd floor of the parking garage and use the catwalk across, take the elevator down, and you safely arrive at the plaza there, and you can walk any direction from there if you want to avoid the crosswalk, the lighted crosswalk. So I have raffle tickets on the 3rd floor on Saturday from 10 to 12. If you want to come up, go shopping, you might see these in some of the merchants' windows. Get a raffle ticket, and at 12, I'll pull a raffle ticket, and someone will be the recipient of this lovely basket with many Thanksgiving things in it, and some gift certificates from some of the merchants. And that's my November marketing tool for the parking garage. More to come.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Jeff, you have anything?
I will. I'll touch on. So this weekend was a wonderful weekend, and Ken, thank you for your prayer because you hit on a milestone that took place. It was Veterans Day yesterday, and it was the 249th birthday of the United States Marine Corps on Sunday. And thanks to our friends at Busted Sandal that opened their doors for our birthday party. But yesterday we had the honor of attending Tybee High School's Veterans Day ceremony. Centerpoint's done one, Tybee's done a small one. It was huge yesterday. Ingram does one. And a gentleman was there with us yesterday. His name is Mr. Furr. Mr. Furr was a 1942 graduate from Tybee High School. He was 17 years old. He was in the gymnasium when he heard about what happened on December the 7th. He left school and went and enlisted in the United States Navy. He was in the Southern Pacific Theater from 1942 to 1946 after the war. And he is one of our Kerrville residents. And he was there yesterday to celebrate Veterans Day with us as well. There's an article that's been posted about it. And to quote Paul Harvey, you'll have to find out the rest of the story. But our heritage and our history that we have in Kerrville is amazing. So thank you.
Of course. Mr. Harris welcomed us and introduced the speaker and told us the story of the history of Veterans Day. So he did a great job. He looked great up there. Mr. McKinney?
Yeah, I'll just mention that Janet and I took a long road trip up to Maine, drove around 7,000 miles.
Oh, my goodness.
We were in, so the point of all this is we were in over 100 cities, I'm sure, and we drove back roads up through Vermont and whatever to get the color. And I came to appreciate that although our streets and roads are not perfect, they are way above everything I saw.
You get it north, yeah.
So it's an excuse to get lazy about it, but we compare very favorably. So thanks to the city staff for that.
Brenda?
Yeah, I just want to mention that Playhouse 2000, one of their season performances is going to be a play called A Sherlock Carol, and that's going to be running from 12:06 to 12:15. But specifically, I want to mention that on the 12th, during that run of that show, they are offering a pay-what-you-can ticket price. So it gives everybody the opportunity who normally maybe couldn't attend a performance at Playhouse 2000 to go ahead and see that, because you just pay what you can for this performance. It's one night only. It's December the 12th. So let's fill that theater up. The other thing is Kerrville Pets Alive is having a adoption event this Saturday, and I want to mention that there was a rather significant seizure of animals that came out of Ingram, and they are being housed at a different location right now because there is no room at the inn, and there's the high potential for a lot of euthanasias because of this seizure. So please go adopt one of our county pets.
Thank you. All right. Next item is a presentation of the Kerrville Recovery Community Coalition. Chief.
As Fire Chief, I have the distinct honor to be part of the liaison for the Kerrville Recovery Community Coalition, and tonight would like to introduce the co-chair, Randy Benno, to provide the annual report out to City Council.
Wherever's convenient for you.
Hello, I'm Randy Benno, co-chair of the Kerrville Recovery Community Coalition, and Deanna couldn't be here tonight, so I'm stepping in. And we just had our International Night of Remembrance. It's every year on August 31st, and we just had our third or fourth one, I think. It was a great event. It's an international Night of Remembrance. It was a moving event. It was dedicated to honoring the lives lost to those through substance use disorder. Each person remembered in the video. I think Chief was going to show a video. Oh, here, maybe that's it. Each name etched into our hearts represents a unique story and a life cut short. The Kerrville Recovery Community Coalition is committed to honoring these lives and supporting those still struggling with addiction. We believe that recovery is possible, and we strive to create a community where hope and healing thrive. One significant step we've taken is to establish a strong online presence. We've updated our website with valuable resources and information. A QR code easily accessible on our website provides instant access to vital recovery tools and support networks. This digital initiative is a testament to our commitment to connecting with community members, no matter where they are in their recovery journey. Another exciting development is the creation of our official logo. This logo symbolizes our unity, our strength, and our unwavering dedication to recovery. It represents the collective effort of our community to break the chains of addiction. But perhaps the most significant project we're currently undertaking is finding a permanent home for our growing Memorial Rock art piece. This piece is a powerful symbol of remembrance, a place where families and friends can honor their loved ones who have passed away due to substance use disorder. We are actively seeking a location that will allow this memorial to be a lasting tribute to those we've lost. Let's continue to work together to create a community where recovery is possible, where hope is abundant, and where the memory of those we've lost lives on. We're also planning every year we do a luncheon with the owners and managers of the sober living homes in Kerrville. And we're planning that, I think, for February. And we're going to host it in the downstairs at the library. And then we'll be, again, planning our International Night of Remembrance for this next year, because it takes us a long time to plan it and pull it together, find a location, and everything like that. But thank you all so much. And thank you, too, for attending our meetings all the time. It's really helpful that you're there. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Benning.
I would like to say one thing. I told Frost Riddell about the night in the park that evening. Frost family owns La Hacienda,
Okay.
and he goes, I wish we would have known. So we
Oh,
just need to
man.
get the word out more to more people. But talking to him about things, he said he is definitely in check, and he's going to be getting with that. So they are fully engaged with
I'll
y'all.
definitely make sure they know. I go there every Monday night and take a meeting, so I'm out there a lot.
What is your website address?
It's the Kerrville City website. We're on the city website.
Oh, I'm talking about the coalition.
It's on the city
Is it?
website.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
Any other questions, comments?
Thank you for
Thank
doing what
you.
you do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much. Kelly, do we have anybody who signed up to speak?
No, sir, no citizens are signed up.
Hold on. We're coming to the consent agenda. These items are considered routine and can be approved in one motion unless a council member, staff, or member of the public asks for separate consideration. Council, do you need to pull anything? Anybody else?
No, sir.
We do have a citizen that wants to speak on 4A, and I do need to read that in.
Of course. So, why don't we do this? We can pull 4A from the consent agenda, if that's okay with y'all.
Yes.
And then I could take a motion on the remaining items in the consent agenda.
And also, just as a note, the 4-H workshop minutes have been corrected. Rachel Johnson, her name was spelled incorrectly, and now it's spelled correctly.
Thank you. Okay, so is there a motion then on
I'll
all
make a
items?
motion to approve consent agenda items 4B, 4C, 4D, 4E, 4F, 4G, 4H, and 4I.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, so vote. And it's unanimous. Moving to 4A, would you mind reading that in before we have our speaker?
Ordinance number 2024-29, second reading. An ordinance amending ordinance number 2024-10, which, subject to conditions not having occurred, authorize the vacation, abandonment, and closure of all right, title, and interest in a segment of a public right-of-way known as Knapp Road, but only to that portion of Knapp Road located south of the Guadalupe River, amending such ordinance by revising the conditions required to take final action to cause the vacation, abandonment, and closure. And this ordinance was unanimously approved on first reading October 22nd, 2024. The speaker is George Baruti.
Mr. Baruti. I missed you last week. I'd been in the hospital. I was sorry I didn't see you at the hospital, so.
I'm not sure what that sounded like to you, but that sounded like you were sorry you didn't see me at
No,
the
no, I-
hospital, like I was sick.
I was hoping you'd come by and visit.
Okay, I thought maybe you were wishing sickness on me.
I-
I'm
I
not
would
sure.
never. I
So
would
anyways,
never.
no, I know, I'm just joking, right? So George Brody, 1616 Glen Road. Anyways, so two issues with this particular one, and I would have done it at the first reading, but I was unable to be here. So the one is, I would encourage council to reach out to find out how other cities do this, because I've been able to find, we're the only one that does not actually charge for vacating an easement like this. Because as everyone knows and all the documentation shows, even though the person may own the underlying land, they own no value if there's an easement, an access easement running across it. When you unencumber that land, you're basically handing them value. So in what you're supposed to be doing is negotiating a sale of that. And our attorney will differ with that, that's fine, but I would urge you to look outside our city for that. The other thing is a little bit, we're allowed to, as a home rule city, without any other, property owners, we're allowed to vacate or close a street. Okay, nobody's disputing that. But what not everybody understands is that when you vacate a street, if the abutting property owner, and in this case, there is one in particular that I guess they were supposed to negotiate something with, you vacate the public easement by doing what you're going to do tonight, but they retain a private easement, an access easement across that same piece of property, because in their deed, when they purchased their property, it referred to this public easement road. So what you guys are actually, I guess, negotiating to do is abandon the public road easement and essentially swap it for a river trail easement in the end. And that's all well and good, except again, that property owner owns a private access easement across that. You're not actually going to be able to prohibit them from driving across it, not that they would want to, but that's something you should look into. And like I say, it's not that you can't abandon the street, it's that unless they give it away, you've got to actually get them to release it. Thank you.
Mr. Rice.
Mayor, Council, just kind of address some of those issues or concerns. We are taking the existing Knapp Road public right-of-way, and basically within the ordinance, they are going to build a new public street that the city will ultimately take over. City does have vested interest to be able to reroute public access. It would not create an easement in perpetuity by any stretch of the imagination. As far as the value component of that, Mr. Baruti is not wrong. You could do that. However, within this, there is a vested interest in the city with Granger McDonald Park in some of that area, and so you can tie that up into economic development type incentives as well. And so in this particular case, it is in a vested interest where the council, if they choose to, could request some monetary compensation, but we don't think it's necessary since the vested interest is to expand a park and some future development.
Any questions for Mr. Rice?
But, and the future river trail, sorry, Mayor, and the
Go
future.
ahead, please.
Yeah.
Any questions for Mr. Rice? All right, is there a motion then on ordinance number 2024-29 on second reading?
I would move to approve ordinance number 2024-29 on the second reading.
Second,
I'll
anybody?
second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, so vote. And it is unanimous. All right, that is finally done. The next item on the agenda is an ordinance number 5A. Shelley?
Ordinance number 2024-11, an ordinance amending Chapter 46, Environment of the City's Code of Ordinances by adding a new Article 2, Tree Preservation, which adopts regulations for the preservation of trees, providing for penalties not to exceed $2,000, ordering publication, providing an effective date, and providing other matters related to the subject. We do have 3 citizen speakers signed up.
Thank you. Why don't we have the citizen speakers before you speak? And then we'll go with a staff discussion. Who's next?
George Baruti.
Mr. Baruti.
Rudy, 1616 Glen Road. Kind of was hoping to hear their presentation first to know if I needed to speak, but that's okay. The only reason I'm standing up, I'm not going to argue about whether I agree or disagree with the whole ordinance itself, just to point out that there seems to be a conflict within itself. So it's all one article, the ordinance, and in the exceptions, 104-4, whatever, it says these exceptions are exempt from the terms and provisions of this article. And it says one of the exceptions is existing platted residential or commercial lots, whether developed or not. That seems to say that everything in it, if you're on a residential lot that's platted, none of it applies to you. Then in 104-6, and another one later, it says tree pruning restrictions shall apply to all real property within the city. So it's kind of, I don't know what it's trying to say. And so, I don't know what the intent was. I didn't listen to any of the workshops, so that's why I was hoping to hear that. But, so I guess I'm asking, what is the intent? Thanks.
Thank you.
Dr. Rector.
I saw you earlier today somewhere.
He's everywhere, let me tell
Thank
you.
you all for being there this afternoon. Bill Rector, 705 Water Street. Honorable Mayor and Council, a lot of work has gone into this ordinance that you're looking at tonight. A lot of work, a lot of study, and a lot of compromise. And we appreciate all of that work. When my folks bought their house in the Starkey Addition in 1958, there were over 100 oak trees that were on that lot. Today, there are none. Oak wilt has decimated those oak trees. They are completely gone. They were killed by oak wilt, and we have the best horticulturist in the nation today working on oak wilt, and they still cannot find a cure. So we will continue to lose trees due to oak wilt. However, this ordinance that you're looking at tonight can help us save trees that are still healthy and are not under oak wilt's disease, and also trees that are not susceptible to oak wilt will be saved by this ordinance. But time is of the essence, because as we sit here, we're losing trees almost daily. We're losing trees due to indifference, due to cost concerns by developers, and we're losing it due to wanton destruction of trees. You have an opportunity tonight to stop that. We've seen recently loss of trees at Hobby Lobby when it was built. We've seen loss of trees at Whiskey Springs. And now we've just recently, in the last 2 weeks, we've seen trees lost at Bluewood, which is an appropriate name because all the trees that are surrounding this large lot are probably blue because all the trees were bulldozed down into a long pile in the last couple of weeks. So time is of the essence to make a difference in this. But once you pass this ordinance, our developers will have properties that they can look at. If they go and they review Carlisle Flooring on Sidney Baker North, if they look at Crinwelge Motors or HEB across the street, they can see how those trees have enhanced the property values and the business of those businesses. If you look at Chick-fil-A, it's got a beautiful tree that was preserved. So we have positive examples that we can show people who want to build in this community. I thank you very much for your work on this ordinance, and I hope we get it passed tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rodney Bacon.
Mr. Bacon?
Hi, welcome back, Mayor. Rodney
Thank you.
Bacon, live on Oriole Drive. I wanted to speak to you about that ordinance as well. I think, and I said this a few weeks ago, I think your responsibilities are police, fire protection, streets, and utilities. And I think you really ought to be focused on those things and try to stay out of some other things that I think you're going to open a can of worms when you get into. I don't like that we lost this big tree over here on Water Street either. However, when you start getting into who can trim which tree and how, and that we're going to bring an arborist in to study, every tree is absolutely unique. So it will not be objective, it'll be a subjective call. So now we're going to need to hire an arborist and get him or her a vehicle and equipment and benefits. And, the free market ought to somewhat take care of itself. I don't like losing that big old tree. And maybe we can make a resolution that says if you do something silly like that, we're going to name you the bad guy of the month. And we're all going to hope you feel really badly for weeks on end. Maybe the realtors step up and say, whatever you do, I wouldn't have taken down that tree. But you get into an ordinance like this, and it's going to go on, and I don't know, I think you're going to, again, open a can of worms. Do you remember a few years ago we had an issue with our sign ordinance? We have this ordinance, but we find out the Chamber of Commerce, of all organizations, is not in compliance. And we couldn't get them in compliance, apparently. Antler Stadium has a sign. It's not in compliance either, but that's Antler Stadium, so it's okay. We're going to give them a pass. Well, as it turns out, nobody's responsible. We have no way, we found out that our software was out of date. We have no way to measure a sign, like that's real difficult. No one to monitor it, no one's responsible, and so I don't know if that was ever resolved. But there's some things that the city doesn't need to get into. What if a tree's dead? What if it's dying? What if I need to replace the roof, but the insurance company says, you're not replacing that roof until you get rid of this tree because we don't want it to fall on it? Do we need permission for all these things? Whoever's paying the taxes on that property ought to be responsible for it. I mean, if you can come up with the money for it, you're willing to pay the taxes on it, I think we ought to get out of some of that stuff. So that's my 2 cents worth on it. I like saving trees too. Just a few years ago, I came home one evening and a tree is taken out of my front yard. They're at the corner. You can drive over and look at the big stump. It's this big around. It was taken out. I don't know who did it. I wasn't there. I was at work that day. It's gone. I can show you the stump. And they didn't bother to paint it. It had to be the city because no contractor would come in and take out a tree like that for nothing. And yeah, it hung over the curb a little bit. Nobody left me a note. Nobody knocked on the door first and said, hey, we need to look at this tree with you. It's just gone. But now, if I wanted to take out that tree, I'd have to ask permission, even though I'm paying my taxes and other stuff. Anyway, thank you for the time. I just consider that. Maybe there's another route. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That is the end of the citizen speakers.
Thank you. And before you start, there has been a misconception among the public that this is all because of a tree on Water Street. But actually, this was in the Kerrville 2050 plan. That plan, worked on by several hundred of our friends and neighbors, suggested we needed a tree preservation ordinance. And so that preceded the event that was caused such an uproar. The thing about a tree preservation ordinance, I can see both sides. My family owns trees that would be affected by this ordinance. But I also know that I campaigned on supporting the 2050 plan, so I'm in the middle. How do I justify both? I think you're right that we can find a way to satisfy most everyone, or in the tradition of a city council, upset most everyone. But we're gonna talk about it in just a sec. But I hear what you're saying. Okay, Mr. Paxton.
Good evening, council. I don't have a PowerPoint for you because I figure we're getting dive into the weeds of the ordinance now that we have our final draft before you. Again, the purpose is to preserve trees. We've talked about that through our several workshops. Section 2 goes through the definitions. And you'll see it in your backup, you've got Table 1, which is the tree preservation categories and rates. And Table 2 is the tree list. Council requested that staff go work with some local tree experts, and we did that through the Riverside Nature Center. And they helped expand that list and fill in some gaps. They also added a section to that whether certain trees would be recommended for future planting based on the location and water availability and so on. They also added let's say a third list to identify some specific invasive species. Obviously not for protection and recommending against planting, but that way the public is notified that these certain species are invasive to our area. As far as the applicability of the ordinance, it does apply to new commercial and residential developments. Council requested that we take out existing developments, and typically the rate of removal of existing developed trees or trees within existing developments is fairly low. Obviously, the new development is what's looking for clearer land to build on. The exceptions, to Mr. Barudi's point, Mr. Hayes and I will look at the language on that. The intent was to exempt existing platted properties from the tree removal permit. The tree pruning would still apply citywide. Section 5, again, details the permit for tree removal. Does require a tree survey prior to any removal of trees on newly developed property. The tree pruning restrictions are intended to be citywide. It is not a permit required, so anyone can go prune their trees or hire a company to do that. There are provisions for oak wilt for those species that are subject to that. So that would be mostly on a complaint basis, or if our staff see that occurring and they're not treating those trees, our staff would work with them to make sure that those trees get treated to prevent that oak wilt spread. Section 7 goes into the protected and heritage trees, the removal of them, the replacement of them, and a mitigation fee. So developments would have the option of removing up to a certain percentage of trees. If they exceed that percentage, they can plant new trees in lieu of what they've removed, or they can pay into a fee that would go into a city fund for tree replacement. And then the council wanted us to identify some incentives, so looking at several other ordinances across the Hill Country. There are some cities that offer a parking space reduction, since that's often the areas that get cleared the most for trees. If they're trying to save a tree to count towards their required percentage, they can reduce the parking up to 15% of their parking requirement. If there are any issues with sidewalk locations, they can go to the Planning and Zoning Commission for either a waiver of the sidewalk to protect the tree, and then tree clusters. So if they're not a large diameter tree, but a significant stand of trees, those can count towards their preservation rate. And then should there be any issue with minimum lot size or setbacks, there's criteria for them to go to the Zoning Board of Adjustment to reduce the setback or move the building on the site to protect existing trees. Section 9 goes into the tree protection measures. So this is how they should operate on the construction site to make sure those preserved trees are protected through the duration of construction. And then Section 10 is the penalty for compliance, jurisdiction being in the city limits, enforcement measures in Section 12, and then any other variances to this ordinance would go to the Planning and Zoning Commission. With that, I'd be pleased to go into detail on any of these sections or answer any questions.
Before we go a lot further, I want to make sure everyone understands. A private homeowner on property that they've had for however many years is not subject to the tree removal restrictions.
That is correct.
But as it's written, they're not subject to anything, just as
Yep.
Mr. Baruti said.
Well, I agree, there are some.
On page 7, it says, all new and residential subdivision developments within the city incurring on private property Oh, in the B, permit information. The information required for a tree preservation and removal permit is located on the tree preservation and removal permit application. There's a tree survey. It doesn't say what you just said, so I guess I wouldn't mind adding that language in here if that's the case.
Go ahead and state what your issue
Okay,
is.
so,
I think there's
it's my understanding from prior council meetings that, we didn't want the existing property owners to be affected,
That is correct.
period. And, that we would, it would all apply to new developments. But it's not what this says, so it seems like this is drawn up, to be against, the whole town. There's 3 or 4 places where it says all real property, it applies. And so it doesn't seem like we're really, the basis of this is more like it's a patchwork from, in town, but not really addressed primarily toward the developers. And so, and I don't think that's what I think that's what we wanted, but that's just not what this appears to be. So, as Mr. Broody said, all existing platted lots from the provisions that are exempt from all of them in Article 2. So nothing in here applies. And so that is what we're asking for, but the rest of this is really, there's several places where it says otherwise. So there's a conflict that needs to be resolved, but I think we need to go back and base it against, the real target is developers and not have all this other patchwork in.
Okay.
Does that speak to your point, Ms.
It
Siegerman?
does, but there's so much more.
Well, please go over it.
Well, so we got to get back to that before we can even kind of
Correct.
decide, because this doesn't really address what we asked for.
I agree with
It's a
that.
good stab, but there are some linguistic or grammatical things that we need to straighten out. Ms. Siegerman?
Well, first of all, I feel like this entire proposal would intimidate anyone, including myself, if I had trees that I needed to do something with or remove or protect. So I don't want to feel like I need an attorney to look at this, before I go forward with whatever my plan would be for trees. I definitely want to see new commercial and new subdivision residential platted, developments have some type of tree survey that they need to adhere to, and that would happen before they get a grading permit. So before they even started taking down vast amounts of trees, like on 800 and something acres, they'd have an idea of what it is we're looking for from them before they even go forward. So that was because I watched the Hobby Lobby trees come down, and I've seen some unnecessary removal of trees, and I see some that could still come down, that are gorgeous trees that if we don't do something to protect them, probably will come down. And some of these parking lots, they could be maneuvered where the parking lot itself could go around these trees. So that's what my intent was. It was not about being prohibitive to pruning trees, because if I want to go prune a limb that I just broke from a storm last night, I want to be able to do that. And if I need Johnny's Tree Service to do it, I don't want Johnny's Tree Service to have a permit, who may decide this business is too expensive now, to even be in the tree business. So I feel like it's gravitated away from my initial concern, and I certainly understand the concerns of, like, I'm a tree owner myself. So I want to make sure I do things right, but I think I have 26 trees in my yard, and I'm sure I'll probably have to do something with one of them. I don't want it to be so hard to do that we don't do anything, and then the trees actually suffer more. So there you go. That's my 2 cents.
Well, you can trim one up to half an inch in diameter, according to this.
Oh, well, I'm
Some of
talking
our
about-
trees are more than half-inch diameter limbs.
Yes.
I agree with that. I'm gonna ask kind of a odd question. Chief, you're probably gonna perk when I say this, but anything over $500, isn't that higher than a Class C misdemeanor? Are we gonna, if we fine somebody up to $2,000, are we gonna charge them with a Class A misdemeanor for cutting down a tree? Are we just talking about criminal, or are we talking just like monetary?
No, our authority just goes to the $2,000. It's all Class C.
We wouldn't put them in jail for it.
Right. Let me be clear too. It's up to $2,000. I mean, the court has discretion on how much to impose, or a jury, for that matter.
I'm all for protecting trees. I really am. And I love them. I think they're great. Cedar trees are another story, but I would like to have more time on this. Because really, Mr. Paxton, I know that your department's gone through a lot to put a lot into this, obviously, but we also asked for a workshop on this. And I don't think a workshop in the middle of city council meeting is the right way to do it. Not pointing fingers at anybody or anything like that, but I think, we need to have a workshop where, Mr. Bacon can come, Mr. Baruti can come, anybody else can come.
Developers.
The
because I've
developers can come
heard-
because they're gonna be the ones
Yes.
that say, we wanna come to Kerrville, or, I don't think so. But we need to, it's my personal opinion, and I'm just one of 5, but I think that we need to put a little bit more into this, and I'm not opposed to coming back up here at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock on another day to sit down with council and anybody else from the community that wants to come listen to it. That's my 2 cents.
Brenda, we haven't heard from you.
Well, I just, I looked at this over the weekend, and it's really just so much and so far from what I was expecting out of a tree preservation ordinance. I mean, I wanted to respect private property rights, okay? I wanted maybe some incentives, which you gave us. But, like this mitigation in lieu of replacement, a person may pay a mitigation fee to the city instead of providing replacement trees required by this article. Well, what is that mitigation fee? I understand why it wouldn't be in the ordinance, but what is that amount? What is the amount of that mitigation fee? So it's those kinds of questions that just have me very uneasy about passing this ordinance as it's written.
Well, yeah, one more thing is it talks about the permit, and the permit information is in the application, but we don't have the application to approve.
Okay.
So,
I do know that we had a citizen that was here one night that's an arborist, we had the gentleman that was here too. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, please, Mr. Rice or Mr. Hornis. Didn't they say that they would be willing to work with the city, to preserve trees for us? To go out and look at it and say if it's diseased or not?
Yes, sir. So there's some things that we have to work through. This draft, I would say, is that this is on me. With the long-range water planning, we wanted to make sure we dedicated the time on that. With the only 2 meetings left in the year, no excuses, but we'll definitely bring it back in workshop. There's some stuff that should have been taken out that we'll readdress and get back with y'all on. We'll provide some more clarity.
Mr. Rice is being kind. Actually, I'm responsible for the agenda, and I'm the one that set it up this way. It's my call.
Well, we're not pointing fingers at anybody.
Right.
I think we just need a little bit more time before we can do anything on this.
Why don't we do this? We've had a fairly frank discussion, which is what I was hoping for. To have a workshop in the future with some of the changes we've discussed, and another draft, what would our action be tonight? To table this, or?
Just kick it back to staff, mayor, council. That's y'all's pleasure, which I would recommend, and then we'll do some clarification, come back to the drawing board, and we could bring it back to the workshop in December.
What I'm hoping we do is we end up with an ordinance that both sides can support. That may be an impossible dream. But it's obvious in the discussion of council, they're not ready to proceed with the draft as presented. So we don't really need to table it, we just need to send it back to staff, correct? That's the consensus?
yes,
And I make good notes, so I'll be happy to, once I did.
Yeah,
Yes,
please
thank
do.
you.
And please provide your notes also, Mr. McKinney, to staff. All right, so we're going to send that one back to you guys. Item 5B, Shelley?
Ordinance number 2024-30, an ordinance amending Chapter 50, Fire Prevention and Protection of the Kerrville Code of Ordinances by adding a new Article 3, Cost Recovery Program and Mitigation Rates, which will authorize the city to apply fees, mitigation rates for various emergency services provided by the Kerrville Fire Department, providing a severability clause, and providing other matters related to the subject. There are no citizen speakers signed up.
Chief.
All right. Good evening. Tonight, wanted to go back over and talk a little bit about our cost recovery program and mitigation rates. If you will remember, we brought this before council in June and discussed a little bit about the fire recovery services. And since then, we have gone out for RFP and ready to present an ordinance in front of you all. So I'm going to do a little bit of review for here. And so part of the overview that to talk about is one of the challenges that we've had, and as a city, as chief, is balancing the rising cost of fire apparatus, our extrication tools, rescue equipment, specialized supplies, and personnel. A lot of the calls that we respond on are high risk for damaging this equipment and replacing supplies through the asset replacement or the capital equipment program. So what we've worked on is implementing a fee for service for motor vehicle accidents and a fee for service to manage hazardous material spills and gas leaks to responsible companies. These fees are usual, customary, and reasonable to include services, personnel, supplies, and equipment. So the types of charges we'll be looking at are for motor vehicle crashes, and this will be for our response for steam stabilization, fluid and fuel cleanup, any car fires we respond to, extrication, supplies, etc. Our hazardous material management, that would be an engine response, our scene management, evacuation, and command and supplies. So we're not a hazardous material technician level. They would come out of San Antonio, but this would be basically stabilizing the incident until they can respond. Also for our gas leaks, that would be an engine response, our first responder assignments, perimeter establishment, evacuation, setup, and command. And then some additional charges if we have our chief response for command operation safety and any additional personnel or apparatus to support these operations. So what's the cost to customers? So for motor vehicle crashes, that includes the car fires. For accidents within our service area, the fire department would apply a fee to persons that do not reside within the city or a district or area that the city has an interlocal or mutual aid agreement to provide emergency fire services. And the charges would go to the at-fault customer that's responsible for payment, and this will go under the auto insurance property damage liability coverage. So this is not for our citizens or under the Kerr County interlocal agreement, but our service area, as you know, is the city of Kerrville plus the greater Kerrville area, and it does not cover the mutual aid request if we were to have those. Hazardous material management and gas leaks will be for all our responses within the service area that would be charged to the company and or insurance. So the timeline that we presented, presented this in June 25th at council, the cost recovery to city council. We went out for RFP for cost recovery services in September. Tonight, presenting the first ordinance for reading. And then on December 10th, we're going to come back with a second reading of the ordinance. We will have a resolution amending and adopting the fee schedule, and then we will award the RFP for cost recovery services. And with that, I will take any questions.
Questions for the chief?
Seems like a very reasonable thing to do.
It does.
So, this is a positive move forward, and this is one of those that many cities have started to adopt more and more, over 200 in Texas.
I will just ask one, and I know you talked about it.
Yes, sir.
But it was pretty much just us, and it wasn't presented at council. What is the rate of return on the insurance claims? Like you said, it was pretty high that they end up paying you back, correct?
Yes, sir. So very high for what we got when we went out for the RFP. So about a 94% is what they were getting back, and that's an estimate based on the RFP that we put out. So average about $600 per customer. And once again, it doesn't increase premiums. They were already in the accident at that point, so or the car fire, whatever it may be.
Thank you, Chief. I will, if you want.
Other questions?
I will make the motion to approve ordinance number 2024-30 on first reading.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, so vote. And it is unanimous.
Thank you.
Next item is 6A, a resolution Authorize the city of Kerrville to enter into a contract with GrantWorks. Who's presenting this one?
I'll present this one
Thank
tonight.
you kindly.
Mayor and council, thank you for taking the time. In order for the city to participate in the 25-26 Community Development Block Grant application process, the first step in that is for us to solicit and entertain a grant administrator. And so we put that out to the paper and solicited from the grant community. We received one response from GrantWorks, who we've worked with in the past. We reviewed their application. They're obviously qualified to work on CDBG projects. There isn't a specific project yet. This is just awarding GrantWorks the ability to work with us to work through the application process, and they get paid based on the grant. So they don't get
There's a
paid some
percentage?
sum, they don't get a sum from us, like cutting a check. This is if they were awarded. If we are awarded a CDBG project of $750,000, GrantWorks would be paid through that grant. And so you don't have a full contract in front of you. This is the awarding of, if you choose to, allowing GrantWorks to help us with this year's CDBG application. With that, I will turn it over to any questions.
Just one quick one, let's say we apply for $750,000. Does GrantWorks get a portion of what we receive if we receive it, or do they get paid on top?
A portion
And
of.
is it a percentage?
It's a percentage. Well, so there's a listed amount, and I believe it's 33,100, I think is exactly what it is.
That would come off
that would
that
come-
750?
That's
That
exactly
would go
right.
to them?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So it's kind of like you would receive 95% of a grant instead of 100% of a grant.
Okay.
Right.
You say we don't have a contract to look at tonight?
No, sir. So if we are awarded and win the CDBG grant, at that same time, it would come back as a contract, because they don't want everybody to have to go through all the effort and expense of preparing the contracts unless you're actually going to get the award. That makes sense?
This is phase 0, basically.
Yeah.
So
This is,
the initial an RFP was submitted to get the qualifications of RFQ. This is basically just saying, hey, they're qualified. We agree with at least starting the process. First application's due in December, and then we haven't even figured out a project for this yet. So we're just kind of being proactive about this. Then there's going to be more steps to kind of June, July timeframe.
You don't want the city to get a reputation of being proactive. That would
I will definitely fail at that one there, so.
All right, any questions about this resolution?
Just one. You know, the one that we're going to apply for in January with the cultural district? That
that's
wouldn't-
in June. They're not conflicting
Right.
things, no ma'am.
The application is in January, but, so it wouldn't have any effect. Okay,
No, ma'am.
just wanted to make sure. Trying to keep my grant things straight.
Any other questions? If there are none, please entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve, the resolution approving the city of Kerrville to enter into an agreement with GrantWorks and identifying a grants representative.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor, so vote, and it's unanimous. Shelley, would you humor me and read in 6B?
Yes, sir. Resolution number 47-2024, a resolution where City Council makes a finding of public convenience and necessity for and authorizing eminent domain proceedings, if necessary, for the acquisition of a fee simple estate totaling 54.9 acres situated in the John Machete Survey number 243, abstract number 43, Kirk County, Texas, for runway expansion, safety areas, and other improvements of a privately owned real property, authorizing all appropriate action by the Joint Airport Board, staff, retained attorneys and engineers, and technical consultants in the institution and prosecution of condemnation proceedings to acquire the necessary fee simple estate that cannot be acquired through negotiation, declaring further negotiations futile, ratifying and affirming all acts and proceedings heretofore done or initiated by employees, agents, and attorneys of the city through its joint ownership with Kerr County of the Kerr County Airport to acquire such property interest, including necessary acts for an applicable lien holders for the property, authorizing all other lawful action necessary and incidental to such acquisition or eminent domain proceedings to survey, specify, define, and secure the necessary interest in real property, declaring the sections of the resolution to be severable one from the other in the event any section of the resolution is determined to be invalid, establishing effective date and finding and determining that the meeting at which this resolution is passed with notice and is open to the public as required by law. And there are no citizen speakers.
Are you in favor? Thank you.
Just me.
Have a sip of water.
Mr. Horn.
The summary was all right there, so. No, Mr. Andrew Munoz, the airport manager, is here today to present in front of you, and so I will turn it over to him.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mayor, Commissioners, Andrew Munoz, Aviation Manager for the Kerr County Airport. I was here a few months ago asking for your authorization through resolution for eminent domain through the Attorney General's Office and TxDOT. Our petition did not pass. The Attorney General's Office declined our petition, which means as the Joint Airport Board and the joint owners of the airport, being the city and the county, we're now responsible for the proceedings of eminent domain, which means we incur the costs going through the proceedings, and then we ask for reimbursement from TxDOT at 90% at a later date once the settlement is finally done. So that means we have to come through the county, who's the prime, since the property is located in the county, they're going to be the primary entities in this, as well as the Joint Airport Board. The city is participating because under the Transportation Code, as joint owners, you're required to also participate in eminent domain proceedings. This is preceded by several years of negotiations with property owners for the acquisition of 54.9 acres to the east of the airport along Airport Loop and 27. We've been unsuccessful. We did follow the process as outlined by TxDOT and the Transportation Code, as well as the Attorney General's advice. Negotiations did not end well. We were not able to come to any type of settlement. So what we're asking for you tonight is a resolution authorizing eminent domain proceedings. That does not prevent the entities from still negotiating a settlement. All this means is it's defining a date at which we can go to court in district court. It's assigning a timeline that this will eventually be resolved. And it is not allowing the developer to continue developing the property and allowing them to escalate the price on the appraisals that the attorneys will go after once we approve the eminent domain proceedings. So we're asking for your authorization for eminent domain proceedings. Last week, the Joint Airport Board did approve the resolution. This morning, the county also approved the resolution authorizing eminent domain proceedings.
Why did the Attorney General deny?
That's a great question. The Attorney General's Office last year stopped all eminent domain proceedings on behalf of government entities. And so we petitioned, even though we knew we were probably going to get denied, we petitioned the state to take it on our behalf, and they stood with their decision to not proceed with eminent domain proceedings.
If I'm not mistaken, the airport is within the city limits, but the development is outside the city limits.
Correct. And correct me if I'm wrong, the property petitioned the city to fall outside of the jurisdiction of the ETJ, correct?
It does, it's outside the city limits and not included in the ETJ.
This was one that was removed recently.
Thank you. All right, any questions for Mr. Horners or Mr. Reeves?
Just an FYI, the developers are in the audience. They just wanted me to let you know that they were here.
I
in attendance.
recognize them. All right, any questions? All right, we're going to need a motion on this.
I would move that we approve resolution number 47-2024.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, so vote. And it is unanimous here as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, 6C. Kerr County Joint Airport Board Fiscal Year 2025 Operating Budget Amendment.
Hello, I'm Crystal Sino. I'm the assistant manager at the Kerrville-Kerr County Airport.
We got the whole crew.
Yes, sir, you do. I wanted to bring before you an amended operational budget for our fiscal year 2025. We submit per our interlocal agreement our operation budget at the end of May to both the city and the county. And we had done that, and you guys approved in, I believe, July, a fiscal year operational budget. Since then, since that submission, we have had a busy summer at the airport, and we've had some forecasted increase in revenues, including $36,000 in predicted non-aeronautical lease revenue, as well as $20,000 in fuel flow fees that we predict to take in this coming year. So based on that, we also looked at our expenses for the fiscal year 2025, and we were able to forecast that we had enough to add one full-time maintenance employee as well as a part-time clerk and a part-time maintenance employee. So we've made those adjustments to the amended budget before you. With a few others, the details are broken down, and I can happily go over any line item you had questions on. But we are still within our balanced for our revenues and our expenses for operations with this presented amended budget. But we are coming before you asking for approval to adopt this amended budget so that we can move forward with operations
Have you
for
already
this year.
presented, have you presented to the Commissioners Court yet?
Yes, we have, sir, and they have approved favorably.
Any questions on this item? Any comment? Okay. I would appreciate a motion then.
I'll move to approve the Kerrville-Kerr County Joint Airport Board amended budget for fiscal year 2025.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Favor, so vote. Thank you. It's unanimous. Thank you all for being here. Want to come out for a tour sometime? All right, we have item 6D, general contract with Green Flush Technologies. Who's presenting this one? Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Shane Heffernan. I'm one of the Assistant Parks and Recreation Directors.
I recognize you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm presenting a restroom project at the Scott Shriner Golf Course for your approval and consideration and possible execution of contract. This project aims to enhance the amenities of the Scott Shriner Golf Course by installing a prefabricated self-contained restroom. The new restroom will replace the existing facility near Hole 2 with a relocation to better accommodate golfers' needs. So we're basically going from the front to the back with one. Due to the site's limited access to traditional utilities, a Green Flush restroom has been selected. It operates without utility connections, making it an efficient and sustainable solution. The total cost for the installation is $157,713, funded by the EIC Sales Tax Revenue Bond, part of the larger $4 million golf course improvement project. Because of the project's cost, City Council approval is required for the purchase. This acquisition, sourced from a sole source vendor, adheres to all purchasing compliance requirements. The restroom unit requires no utility connections, making it ideal for off-grid installation. It includes a 135-gallon potable water tank for hand washing, an 800-gallon vault for toilet flushing, and a 1,000-gallon black water tank to be serviced as needed. Advanced ventilation provides reliable odor control, while the rooftop solar-powered battery system supports electrical systems such as lights and a hand dryer. A propane heater supplies hot water. This eco-friendly off-grid restroom aligns with sustainable practices, reduces environmental impact, and enhances convenience for golfers. The golf course currently has 2 restrooms in addition to 2 facilities at the pro shops, or in addition to facilities at the pro shop, I should say. However, the restroom near Hole 2 has been closed for several months due to its deteriorating infrastructure and the high cost required for upgrades to meet current building codes. Given its age and condition, this facility will be removed. It is the restroom circled in red on the screen. To maintain restroom access on the course, a Green Flush restroom will be installed, allowing the course to still have 2 on-site restrooms. The new restroom will be located on the back 9, a placement requested by the golfing community to better serve their needs. It is the restroom circled in blue. If you're familiar with the golf course, basically we're going to put it it's going to sit between hole 13 and 14. Due to its cost, this project requires City Council approval. This is a sole source purchase that is compliant with purchasing policy. Staff is requesting approval of the purchase and authorization for the city manager to finalize and execute the contract. And with that, I'll open it for questions.
Can I tease you for a second?
Sure.
Does it flush directly on the greens, or?
No.
If it doesn't require a utility connection, how do we fill that tank up with potable water?
Okay, so we have a cube, a kind of a small water cube, holds approximately 200 gallons. So the restroom itself has level indicators of both the water, basically the flush water and the black water. So we'll be able to monitor those accordingly. In the mornings, like on Mondays, we'll be able to go out and fill that potable water. It takes about 1 quart to flush the toilet, so you get a lot of flushes out of that water. Again, it's not, the water that's in it is not for drinking, it's basically for washing hands, things like that. But we'll be able to go out, fill that up really quick. Maintenance staff will be able to do that and then get off the course on a Monday before the course opens.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, please. Sir.
I think when I went through all these national parks this summer, I think I saw a lot of these, and they're quite, they look very acceptable.
There's a lot of them in North America and Canada. They're really popular in off-grid parks especially.
I think it's a great location because anybody that plays golf at Shriner, you get back there and it's like, man, I gotta go to the bathroom, and you gotta wait till you get back to the clubhouse. It was very interesting when I was going through this packet and looking at it because the American Lake Veterans Golf Course is in Washington State. Bruce McKenty, who's mentioned in here, is a friend of mine.
Oh, really?
He was a past military Order of the Purple Heart Legion commander, and I've actually played golf course with him, and that was really, it's a cool idea. It's a great concept. So my hat's off to you all for going after that one because it's a great bathroom.
Problem.
Great bathroom, great resource. So, but thank you.
You bet.
Other questions?
It has been budgeted for, correct?
Yes, ma'am. It's in the golf course renovation project.
Okay, and then also it says that the restroom at Hole 2 has been closed for several months due to extensive vandalism. Have we cured that situation of vandalism, or do we have to worry about that with this new?
We think it's, yes, to answer your question, yes, this will have automatic door locks on it, so it will lock whenever we set the times. But also, I think the location of the Hole 2 restroom lends itself to a lot of vandalism because it's right there on the road, whereas this is much further in the back of the course.
Any other questions? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I would make the motion that we approve the general contract with the vendor Green Flush Technologies.
Second.
Motion made by one golfer and seconded by another.
We're relieved.
Thank you so much.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, so vote. And it's unanimous. Thank you for coming tonight. Appointment to the Food Service Advisory Board.
You want to go ahead, or you want me to?
Go ahead. You've been more in the food business than myself, so.
Okay, I served on this board for about 6 years, and it's a great board. I learned a lot. We have 2 people eligible for reappointment, Shauna Ebert and Elena Reyes. And I would vote or make a motion to reappoint both of them. We also have a new applicant, Jeremy Rapinski, and at this time, I would move to appoint him for that 3rd spot. Okay?
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, so vote. And all right, there is no need to go into executive session. Here's the part where you get to put items on future agendas. It's important. I put an item on the agenda for us to talk about water during a workshop. So if you have something you believe we need to talk about, this is your opportunity. Any items?
I mean, it's a given fact. We're gonna have a workshop on the tree, so.
Anybody?
Not
Everyone's
at this
going to.
time, but wait till after the 1st of the year.
All right.
Let's start.
And the city council meeting at 7:10.